Well, I'm really pleased to be with you today. Thanks for the invitation to come all the way from Virginia. And I'm going to introduce you to Charlottesville tomorrow and our work. I'm going to talk about our strategic approach to covering local elections because it's part of our mission, it's part of our DNA, and it's a growing part of our business. I am going to share some things we do on the web, but at the same time, I'm going to tell you about our partnerships and things we do in print that you might not have expected. So our mission statement, we take mission statements really seriously at our organization and others that I've worked with. Our board of directors this is our pitch, and our board and staff were meeting on this on Tuesday and debating some of these words here. So it's something we go back and revisit. But we're a community information resource. We're covering growth, development, local politics, and over the past year, public education. And for us, it's all about connecting our public to information so they can make informed choices. Now, how many of your newspapers have a mission statement that you know? Good, we got one out there. And so as I go through this presentation, you think about us with a really focused strategic mission. I want you to think about your work and how maybe there's an opportunity there. A few bullets about the organization just to have you understand fully what our operation looks like. Again, founded in 2005 as a nonprofit. We're in the city of Charlottesville in Albemarle County, combined population of about 145,000, home to Mr. Jefferson. And I do need to go visit his gravestone, which I hear is around this building, so I need to pay a visit there. We've got 4 full-time employees, myself, a growth and development reporter, an education reporter, and then one person who does community engagement, events, and marketing. I've got 11 bosses, my board of directors, and we have an annual budget of about $400,000. Now, as a journalism business, Charlottesville Tomorrow is called a hyperlocal, online hyperlocal information. We are members of the Virginia Press Association. We're also a founding member of Lions, the local independent online news Publishers Association, and they meet in Chicago every year for their annual meeting, and they held their first one this past September. But importantly, we're a partner with other local media companies and nonprofits who cover local politics. So let me talk about what we do. Obviously, we're producing news. I like to call it civic media on the issues that we're covering. In depth on local elections, we're going to talk all about that. We also do research, polling, visualizations. When we're talking about a highway project, not only do we write about it and file FOIA requests with the Virginia Department of Transportation, but we've actually built the highway. We've built it in Google Earth. So we'll build 3D models of these projects and show them to the community. We've done that with dams. We've done it with gas stations. We'll build the actual building that's being talked about. People can fly around it in Google Earth, see what it looks like in the real environment. Again, it's not information for information's sake. We're trying to engage the community, inform their choices. Now, this slide is not going to be news to any of you, but it may be, given that I was the blogger who confessed my sins earlier. But we started as bloggers and podcasters in 2005 with this approach, that we're going to be fact-based, we're going to be nonpartisan, we're going to go really in-depth on a small number of issues, and we're not going to take positions. We do not have an editorial page. My board of directors does not write editorials or pick an outcome that they want to see happen. This quote was something we looked at back when we started, and it really rings true for me. Democracy becomes real for people when they decide what kind of community they want, not so much which political party or candidate they support. A lot of the local government issues that we cover don't break on partisan lines, right? There's not a Republican and Democrat view of the drinking water pipeline or dam that needs to be built. So I think for us, we're trying to engage the community, get them involved in choosing a better future, and that's important. It matters to us, and again, this is from our mission statement, because we believe an informed public is going to make decisions that's going to make Charlottesville better. we provide them enough information, they're going to make good choices. So in the home of Thomas Jefferson, you will not be surprised that we're taking this Jeffersonian leap of faith that if we inform the public, they will do right with that information. And that really is what we're all about. Now, there are lots of things that get people engaged in the community. Some of these icons here represent backyard issues that get people fired up and involved, and they start looking for information. When they do so, I want to be the most in-depth resource they think of. I want them coming to our website and our resources and our partners' resources and getting information. We took a strategic focus early on just 2 elections, our city council and our board of supervisors, because those 11 people are the ones making all the decisions about those quality of life issues that I showed in those little pictures. The roads, the pipes, the schools, the budget. So we said, let's add value to those races. People are going into the voting booth and they may not have enough information. And let's help them out. This is the menu of things we provide our community. And I'm going to talk about a few of these. The picture there is a candidate forum. We do host candidate forums for every race. Every seat on the Board of Supervisors, we held a separate forum. This is a City Council combined forum because they run at large. We do that in partnership with the newspaper. And not only that, we cover everyone else's forums then as well and put the full audio online. So we do candidate interviews, the forums. We mail voter guides. We put everything online. We do campaign finance data. I'll show you an example of that. We've done our own media campaigns. We'll buy time on the radio. And we'll run ads, and we'll say, you need to vote. There's an important election coming up. Get engaged, participate, come to SeavilleTomorrow.org and learn about the people running for office. We get on the radio in a weekly news program, and we talk about these races. We partner with a radio station. We have a wiki, like Wikipedia, and we do weekly email newsletters. Our reach on our newsletter is over 10,000 people in our community. So let me talk about a few of these. And I gave you a copy at your place. I've got extras here if you'd like to see it. Not that you want to read the in-depth Albemarle County Board of Supervisors voter guide, but I want to show it to you so you have something tangible and you can see what I'm talking about. But this is an example, and it's really at the heart of our election coverage, is collecting the information that drives these voter guides. The guides are online. People can download them. This one I checked on the way here. It's got about 10,000 words, which I think is almost as many words that you have on billboards between St. Louis and Columbia. Just saying. Right. I haven't seen anything quite like that in a while. So it's about 10,000 words. 70% of that is the candidates speaking about the issues, verbatim. We sit them down, we record their responses, we transcribe it, pull excerpts, put it in the voter guide. It's in-depth. But we're not going to leave anything to chance. We're also going to put the audio out there as a podcast. You can download the transcript. You can listen to the audio. But how do I know that somebody is going to actually get this? Well, we're not going to take any chances there either. We're going to mail it first class to every voting household. So every voting household gets a copy of this. I can guarantee it. Now, we couldn't do this without partners. I want to talk about our partnerships briefly. We partner with the daily newspaper, Daily Progress. Seville Weekly is an alternative weekly, and WTJU is a college radio station. Those are our 3 current partners. And this, partnerships in news media, something you hear a lot about. For us, it's really powerful because we're increasing the amount of civic media that's available. And we're increasing election coverage. And one of the speakers earlier today, it was you. You were talking about the number of stories. And was it about 10 was the average?
Yeah.
About 10 stories was the average that the newspaper's being studied. And while I was sitting there, pulled up how many stories did we write about Albemarle County election in 2013. And we did about 57. If you add in Seville Weekly, the Daily Progress, we're up to 88. And if you combine our city county coverage, we had over 100 of our own pieces on our website just about the 2013 local elections on those two races. So the Daily Progress Partnership. This started in 2009 when the managing editor of the newspaper approached us. He'd been watching us for 4 years, realized he was sending his reporters to the same meetings we were going to, realized if we could learn how to write a lead a little tighter maybe, we could shorten up our stories, then maybe he could put that in the newspaper. So McGregor McCants, who worked for Media General at the time, approached us, and I think this was a pretty courageous thing to do, to approach a nonprofit and say, we want to put you on the front page of our newspaper. We need help. What was happening? His newsroom shrunk, 45 people to 18 during the time he had been there. And the newspaper wanted to cover local government. And we were doing it, and we thought together we could do it better. So we put about 25 stories a month in the newspaper. That cover was a really good day for us because we had 3 of the stories on the front page. And in 2013, it was 53% of their coverage on this beat. In 2012, it was 60+%. It is a win-win partnership. What do I get? Well, they print the voter guides. They have a printing press. So that was the trade. We'll give you free content if you take care of my, every 2 years, printing my voter guides. And it's a win-win. And they do other things for us, in-kind advertising on their email, web, and in print. But no cash is trading hands. So the alt weeklies approached us last year. They said, how can we get in on this action? And I said, well, I've always wanted to cover local public education. I used to be on the Albemarle County School Board. Education has a similar information gap, had one in our community, and I thought together we could partner and cover education. So now we do a page in the alt weekly every week on local schools, and guess what they do for me? They print our school board voter guide. They embedded it within the weekly, the week before the election, and for the first time the community had in-depth, detailed voter guides, and it looks very similar to the one you've got. It's that kind of verbatim responses to in-depth questions. Again, we made it available online and really tried to push that out through our online sources.
Is the News Progress okay with that arrangement with the Alt Weekly?
Well, that's a good question. We had some tough meetings talking about this because now here, Charlottesville Tomorrow is working with 2 competitors on different beats. And so our approach was to have different reporters working with those partners. So Sean Tubbs, our growth and development guy, works with the Daily Progress. Tim Shea works with Seville Weekly. And so we sort of separate them. That still leaves me in the hot seat negotiating these things. But you know what? We've been doing it for almost a year. It's been working well. And we're going to keep going with this. So what does this look like? This is sort of without this partnership in play. So I just want to explain this graph briefly. The lines represent the number of stories written per month by these 3 publications, Seville Weekly, the Daily Progress. There was another alt weekly called The Hook. They're in red. So Seville Weekly's in yellow. Green is the Daily Progress. So how many stories going back to November 2007 to the end of the year did they write per month on growth and development, local politics? And you can see the trends. And I assume this trend is similar for most newspapers in the country. A shrinking ability to cover civic media, right? So this shouldn't be a surprise. But if you add in our contribution to the newspaper's coverage, just on growth and development, forget about education, you can see the Daily Progress is on an upward trend in its ability to cover our community because we're working in partnership. I see Jay Rosen in Chicago when we go to the conference for the Lions group, and before that it was called Block by Block. He said this at one of the conferences, because it's not just about the quantity of stories, it's about the quality. And for us, that's really important. If we're trying to move the community to a better place, not only do we need to go in depth, but it's got to be quality journalism. And this rings really true for me, that Jay reflecting on, it's a different act of journalism to write about a place where you live than a place you are passing through. The difference is almost spiritual. We are embedded in our community because we care about the place where we live and we want to make it better. And we carry that with us to every meeting we go to and in every story that we write. Now, a lot of the journalists coming to Charlottesville, they're in their first job. The first thing they're doing at the TV station is they're building their highlight reel for their next job, which is not in our community. So they are passing through. That's a different kind of journalism. So I want to show you some examples of some of the multimedia work we've done. This was our biggest election story in the last election cycle. One of the reasons it worked, it was a controversial issue about a candidate and one of his campaign mailings. And unexpectedly at a candidate forum, he just started defending himself and saying it wasn't what everyone thought it was. Well, we had the mailing. Again, we're embedded in the community. I'm on his mailing list. I live in that district. So my wife and I both got the mailing, 2 copies of it. My daughter got a copy. We got 3 copies. And so we put the mailing online. That's not hard to do an attached document. We've been talking about that today. Our CMS makes it really easy to upload a PDF and link it to the story. We also put the full audio of the candidate forum. But we took it a little further and we used a program out of the Night Lab at Northwestern, and it's called SoundSight. And so we were able to embed within the text some of the audio. So you can see at the bottom, you could click on the start of this sentence right here, and you would hear the spoken words that were said at that point in the discussion. Now, his opponent was not at that candidate forum. The subject of this letter, the question of whether this letter was an endorsement, he was not at the forum. And so we were able to bring him into the story, but able to have audio from both the candidates, Mr. Snow and his opponent, both within that story. And we found that made people really want to utilize this piece of information. I'll show you an example of that afterwards. We also track the money in local politics. Again, partnerships. We partner with the Virginia Public Access Project. It's a nonprofit that covers all the money in Virginia politics. So we said to them in 2007, how can we get our local candidates plugged into your statewide system? They'd been focused on people running for General Assembly, federal offices. We wanted to get local people involved. So for the first couple of years, we would take the filings from the registrar's office, scan them, and get them to Richmond so they could upload the data. We didn't want to reinvent the wheel. I know you're going to talk about Excel and figuring these things out and using databases, and that's great. I was lucky to have somebody who'd already figured it out, and I just needed to get them the raw material. Well, now the filings are all done electronically, so this data just flows straight to Richmond, and the Virginia Public Access Project puts that up there. So we can write the stories, the horse race stories about how much money is in these races. But the great thing about VPAP is we can send our readers to VPAP. They can click on a candidate and they can ask the question, what industries are funding this candidate? That's all figured out. And that information's right there at everyone's fingertips. I mentioned our wiki. We used this as an in-house database for a long time. We finally shared it with the public. And it's a true collaborative encyclopedia. It's built on the same platform as Wikipedia. They give that software away. We downloaded a copy. We pointed it at our community. And we said, we want this wiki to be all about the people, places, and events, no matter how noteworthy people think they are. This can be just a place for everything. Park the data here. And we send that message out to the community. Come here and contribute something. Tell us your story. So as you look at our stories on our website, all the hyperlinks go to the wiki. So we can tell you more about these candidates because we've profiled them on the wiki. We have all their election history on the wiki. Sure, you can go to the State Board of Elections website and get information about how the candidate votes turned out when they got elected, but in no place is there one page where you can see all of their past elections and other things they ran for all in one place. The wiki is a great repository for that. So this is an online multimedia way for us to collect more information and share it with the public. And I'll finish here with some pictures, not nearly as good as the ones we saw earlier, but I thought it was a good point that I guess Al made about humanizing candidates in our coverage. And, these are our neighbors. These are people we know really well. We've seen them grow up on the school board, run for city council, for example, and we try to cover them start to finish. We send them a letter that says that when they declare. We send them a letter inviting them to be part of our process. And our process is, we're going to go to every event you have. We're going to put up every piece of audio that we can get of you talking. We're going to put that all online, gavel to gavel. We're going to interview you. We're going to do the voter guides. We're going to transcribe it, et cetera, et cetera. And we're going to invite you to candidate forums. And then once you take office, we'll take that picture of you getting sworn in. So we cover that start to finish. We've experimented with video. I'm not going to talk a lot about that. We tried filming a lot of our candidate forums. We tried filming every candidate announcement. Nobody was watching it. So it was just too much effort to pull all that material together, so we stopped doing it. But we also are a community organization. We need people to sign up for our email list. I need to get them on our mailing list. So we set up tables at the polls, and we'll collect addresses from people. We'll say, here's our voter guide. Did you get it? What'd you think? Tell us what can we do better the next election. In the bottom right corner there, I'm interviewing a city council candidate, and we invite the candidates to come talk to us, and we get some more content on election day. And they're relieved that that day has finally arrived, and it's fun to talk to them at that point. So why do we do all this? It's vital to our democracy. That's the big thing I would say. Just repeat that I think local officials really impact our quality of life, and that we trust engaged citizens armed with clear, nonpartisan information are going to make informed choices. The information that we're collecting is one tool for government accountability, holding these people accountable once they get into office. And our daily reporting helps ensure open government, transparency. And we couldn't do this without the partners that I mentioned. On the nonprofit side, I mentioned the Virginia Public Access Project for the money, but the League of Women Voters is a new partner this past year. The League of Women Voters did 3 things. First, they said, we want to work with you, and we want to pay you to help cover local education. They made the biggest gift a League chapter has apparently ever made in the country, and they helped underwrite the hiring of our education reporter. That was something they thought needed to be covered better in the community. And then the League said, we've always done a voter guide, you've always done your voter guide, let's see if we can collaborate. And so you'll see their logos on the front of the voter guide. We had the League members collect the candidate bios and all that information. So that's a good partnership. And then I mentioned the news partners. So I'm going to stop there, see what kinds of questions you have. We're doing okay on time, right?
Yeah.
All right. Good, thank you. Yep.
I see you have CenturyLink on your front. Did they just help with these printed documents, or did you get more funding from them in other ways?
They helped underwrite our work, Charlottesville Tomorrow's work, on the voter guide. So we got a gift from them directly. The newspaper did not get advertising revenue from this piece. Good question. Yep.
A comment and then a couple questions. First, I wanted to compliment you on what you're doing here. This is fantastic stuff. And
Thank you.
It's unfortunate some of our previous politicians weren't here to see some of this, because I think they would find it edifying as well. To follow up on that comment, I don't know, would you be interested in moving to Western Iowa? Branching out. But seriously, my question for you is, you mentioned a $400,000 budget, and she kind of alluded to that. I'm a little curious about the business model, how that's funded, if
Yep.
it's big tobacco money, mafia, or where it's coming from.
So most of our funding comes from individual donors in our community. That's the bulk of it. And the gifts can range from $5 to $100,000. We have a growing number of annual givers, people giving smaller gifts, under $1,000. And every year, the past 4 years, we've hit new records on the number of people contributing to our work. Now, the annual gifts are only about 10% of that budget, so $40,000. But it's a good measure of progress for us, that we're getting more and more people engaged, and they're saying, this is important, I like what you're doing, I want to help. We also do underwriting on the website. We call it underwriting instead of advertising because we're a nonprofit. That's another 10% of our budget. And then we get foundation grants as well. And we're in our 9th year, so at some point I think I'm going to be able to say we're sustainable. But every year, as in your business, every year is a challenge. So have to raise all that money again.
I suppose in many ways it's no different from a traditional newspaper, but when you have private donors giving you as much as $100,000, do you run into conflicts of interest when maybe they get involved in the news in a bad way?
Well, knock on wood, I can't think of a case where they got involved in a bad way. We have had spouses of board members make campaign gifts to candidates that we were covering, and that made the newspaper uncomfortable when we were writing stories about the candidates. So we disclosed in the story who the major donor was. The first time we wrote about it, we didn't connect that person to our board chair, and so we clarified that in the future. We just try to be very careful about those situations. We certainly tell anybody who asks that there's no expectation that you're going to get anything out of us editorially, right? We're helped by the fact that we're a nonprofit saying we're not trying to take positions on anything, and we don't have an editorial page. So if we're just saying our goal is to give you the facts, that tends to protect us in some ways. Now, something that will blow your mind is that when we started the partnership with the newspaper, I was the chairman of the local school board. So on one side of the newspaper on the front page, I'd be quoted during a school board meeting talking about the Board of Supervisors, and then in the next column I'd be writing the story talking about the school budget, not the school budget, the local government budget. So these have been issues we've had to navigate. Now the newspaper knew that up front. Obviously I've had a lot of time in our community, I'm pretty well known, and they were willing to take that into account and try this. And I don't think we ever crossed a line. That was a problem. It made my life really complicated and having to navigate those waters. So eventually I did resign early in my second term from the school board, primarily just to take that off the table. I didn't think anything wrong had happened, but I just didn't want it to be a worry for the newspaper and for my board of directors. So I just wanted to take it out of the picture.
Could you tell me how big your budget is?
Yeah, so it's $400,000 a year right now. Yep.
It's all donation. I know there's an investigative group in Chicago, and they say they investigate everybody that gives them money. Do you do that?
Well, I know. I've asked all these people for money, so usually I'm sitting down with lunch at them. So the big donors I know really well. I certainly don't investigate every single donor, but the newspaper is charging more for their subscription than I get from, numerically the number of most of our donors, and I don't think they're investigating that.
I'll ask another question. Oh, sorry, I don't mean to boom everybody. We've had a lot of conversation today about how to engage citizens in helping define the agenda or the issues that are going to be discussed in an election context. I don't want to put you on the spot, but maybe you could show us or at least describe what you guys have done with Google Moderator to accomplish that, because it's one of the more successful attempts I've seen.
We did experiment with Google Moderator where you can sort of announce up front, there's a candidate forum happening, what questions do you have, and people can log in there and queue them up. We used that one election, we didn't use it in the past cycle. Basically we found social media was an easier tool to use. People were more comfortable with that. But the basic point is, yes, we're trying to engage the community and get them involved helping figure out what those questions should be. So we put the call out via email, we put the call out on Facebook and say, candidate forum's coming up, here are the two candidates, please weigh in, tell us what you want to ask them. And then at the candidate forum, that's a partnership with the newspaper. In the past, I've been the moderator, the managing editor of the newspaper takes all the index cards from the audience. So the managing editor is picking the questions from the audience, and then, you know, I'll ask them of the candidates. But then we've got both organizations involved. Nobody can, you know, we sort of separate out those roles. But again, and sometimes what we'll do is we'll print out all of the internet-based questions, and we just sort of put them in there as another card, right? So we show up with all the questions from the internet, those from the live audience, managing editor goes through them, and we'll say, hey, here's a question, you know, from the internet. We're not doing anything fancy when it comes to like live streaming or taking questions live over the internet, just because I don't want to leave anything. We want a lot of control over these events, and I don't want to be distracted by technology. And so we've just decided to take sort of a low-tech, collect them in a high-tech way, but run the forums in a low-tech way. I will show you one, can I just get to a web page here? Yeah. I think so.
Google Chrome is running down.
If you go to my Twitter, I've put up a bunch of links. To some of the things we've been talking about. Whoops. And one I'll show you is, we were talking about the candidate Q&A, and this was a way we used that SoundSite tool to sort of spice this up. So this is content that's in the voter guide, but this issue was the key election issue for us. So we wanted to reinforce what's in the printed voter guide. We just took the verbatim answers that they gave us, but we also, sorry, you can see I'm not a Mac person. Let's see, I'm waiting for the audio to pop up. There it is.
I'm going to be short to the point with this one. As I understand it, this is a done deal. So we're going to move forward, and I'm moving forward. If elected, I will work hard to make sure that this construction.
I'll stop it there. But again, we're taking the audio. The transcript's available. I know one of the issues earlier was let's get pictures up there. Well, the reason I have that picture in that nice format, I couldn't, even with my skills, I couldn't make something look that nice. So we, you know, got this from the newspaper. They gave us an image package to use with these stories. And so it's, again, another way to get people drawn into this content in an in-depth way.
And did you say earlier that you actually built the highway visually?
We did. Let me see if I can show you quickly what that looks like. Our website is heavily organized around topics because we're focused on these quality of life topics. So I want people to be able to hit that Western bypass topic and get to the best information about it. Now, I'm going to show you another thing about sort of one-stop shopping for the best news on the Western bypass. We aggregate our partners' stories, and we did it when they weren't our partners. In fact, our online archive of their stories is bigger than either of theirs because they've replaced their CMSs over the years and they've blown away the history of their website. We've been clipping their stories since 2005. Now, we don't have the full text. We just have a fair use sample, but we sort of have a guidebook so that when people need to go back to the microfilm, they know where these old stories are. But the most recent stuff, you can see, we're mixing in our stories, the ones that have pictures, with Daily Progress, CVille Weekly. They're all in one place. So that allows me, as a, I'll call it a community organizer, when I go out in the community, I'm talking about these issues. And I'll say, if you want to learn about the Western Bypass, go to our site. We're going to link to everything, and you can read all about it from every news source in town. Let me see if I can find a good picture of those 3D models, though.
While you're doing that, I might ask one last question. Do you know if the News Progress has seen an increase in circulation since they started publishing your stories?
I don't believe that they have, but I don't know that for certain. This is an old story, and I fear this may not have worked, but, oh, no, it didn't work. Anyway, No, that's all right. Let me try one more place. You know how you have those spots on your website that you don't keep current all the time? And we're going into one of mine. I'm going to go back to the data lab. We partnered with a local architect who approached us and said, these are some examples. It's kind of hard to see there, but you've got downtown Charlottesville. If you zoom in Google Earth on downtown Charlottesville, our interns built that in Google Earth. Why did we do that? We covered land use issues. We wanted to be able to put a building in context and have people see the built environment. There's a visualization in the bottom right there, and I can show you what this looks like. This one will work. Now, we didn't pay to have this one built, but we've done other ones like this. So this is a development proposal, a Marriott Residence Inn in a prominent corner in downtown Charlottesville. This sort of visual communicates a whole lot more than the site plan does, right? So we started doing things like this and just sort of, we'd call it the developer and say, give us your best plans. Then we'd hand them to the architect. This independent architect would build them and do movies like this. And, you know, some of you have sat in these rooms where they're talking about a site plan or, and you realize they really can't visualize it in 3D. They can't put a picture on what they're trying to approve. And so we would put these models out there, and it really changed the debate in the community. The community members who were concerned about growth and development, they could then focus in their concern on specific aspects of this project: traffic flow, building design, sidewalk widths, whatever, street trees, because it's all there. They can see it. It looks real to them. So as we started doing that as a few experiments, and then we found that the Board of Architectural Review started asking developers, hey, it'd be really great if you could do a 3D model for us so that we could see what that looks like. And you know, most of the time they have them these days, right? They have 3D models. They don't always like to share them because they're not sure what that's going to lead to. You know, more questions and they might get rejected. But this is a pretty transformational thing for us to take, whether it's a dam, a road, or a building proposal, and try to put the best picture possible on it. And those stories get a lot of traffic as well.